Hello, everybody. Long time no see, and welcome to the first of hopefully many Magic Online videos. Today, I'm going to be taking on a modern league on Magic Online, obviously, as you can see. While Magic is not the videos that I've been making pretty much ever before, it's become such a big part of my life that I feel like I need to make some videos about it. So I'm going to be playing some Magic Online today for you. And today, if you're watching this video, we're going to be talking about the deck that I will be playing and the format and so on and so forth. So if you're into Magic, feel free to hang out, take a look, watch the games. If not, I'll be making some other things in the near future. So thanks for watching. Let's get down to the deck. So we're playing Modern, which is my personal favorite format. And I'm going to be taking on Modern with my personal favorite deck, Jund Midrange, Jund Classic Midrange, whatever you want to call it. I just call it Jund. We're going to be mid-range, we're going to be grindy, we're going to fight the format the way Garfield intended, as a lot of people like to say. For my list here, this is pretty much as stock as you can get. I got a little bit of spice on the sideboard, but the main 60 cards, pretty much, like I said, as stock as you can get. I've got, the generic package. We've got the 6 hand disruption spells, 4 Inquisitions, 2 Thoughtseizes, the usual. I've got the 1 mana removal spells in Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt. Death Shadow has fallen down in popularity a lot in this format, but I still think Fatal Push is just way too good of a removal spell to remove from the deck and run more Lightning Bolts. Push is just better than Bolt anymore, so I like this split a lot. I also like the Inquisition and the Thoughtseize split. There are a lot of times where I feel like, man, I wish this Inquisition was a Thoughtseize, but I haven't hit that point enough times to where I want to bring in the 3rd Thoughtseize over the Inquisition. So we're going to run with this. Going up to the 2 mana, the creatures, stock as it gets. I got 4 Tarmogoyf, 4 Dark Confidant, 3 Scavenging Ooze. Pretty much every Jund list that is without tech or anything like that is running this exact setup. Some run only 2 Scoozes. We're going to run 3 because I'm a big fan of running 3. I don't see the need to cut down to 2 right now. Tarmogoyf, of course, is our main beat stick. It's going to be the thing that gets them dead most of the time. Dark Confidant, one of the best cards ever printed. It's going to give us our card advantage. It's going to churn through our deck and make us be able to do what Jund wants to do, which is grind out our opponent. The other 2 drop spells we have are removal spells. We have 3 copies of Terminate and 2 copies of Abrupt Decay. My paper list is only currently running 1 Abrupt Decay, but with the abundance of small creature decks that I'm hearing about for Modern, I feel we're going to go up to 2, plus I don't have the other cards that I typically run. 3 Terminate is just, this is what I run. Like, 3 Terminate is a really good spell. You flood on this, you don't really feel all that bad if you draw all 3 copies of your Terminate, because it can pretty much kill everything in the format as long as it doesn't have Indestructible, which most of the format doesn't. So let's go up to the 3 drops. Liliana of the Veil, of course. We've got a full playset of this dumb Planeswalker. Just probably one of the best cards in the Modern format. I was running 3 for a very long time, and then decided to bump up to 4, and I will never go back down again. She comes down on turn 3, she just takes over the game unless she's answered. Keeps your opponent's hand nice and small, keeps their board nice and small, and then you can just destroy them if you ever ulti. I haven't ultied her too many times in the history of playing Jund, but the times I have, man, it's devastating. So we're going to run full playset of Liliana. A Maelstrom Pulse. Me and this card go way back. I don't like playing black-green midrange without at least 1 copy of Maelstrom Pulse. It's a little slow at sorcery speed and 3 mana, but it's just incredibly powerful. Tokens are a thing that happen a lot. You're going to 2-for-1 your opponents a lot of the time with a Maelstrom Pulse. It's very good, very solid removal spell that I always like to have at least 1 in my 75. And 1 K command. A 2-for-1 on a card that is just dumb, so obviously we're going to run a K command. We're in black and red. There's no reason not to run this card. And then finally at our 4-drop slot, I'm up to 2 4-drops. I know a lot of Jund lists are stopping at 3 now. They're running like Goblin Rabblemaster, I think it is. Not really a fan of Goblin Rabblemaster and Jund. I like going up to the 4 drops. Huntmaster of the Fells is the card I'm choosing to do battle with today. Pretty much the go-to 4-drop for Jund, I feel like, anymore. A lot of lists are running Olivia, a lot of lists are running Kalitas. I just think Huntmaster is a solid choice no matter what you're going to be up against. Like, Kalitas against small creatures is obviously great. Olivia against small creatures is obviously great. I just feel like Huntmaster right now is the safer choice. So, in paper, I'm not running him, but I don't have the 4-drop that I typically run in paper, which is Hazoret. So, we're going to run 2 copies of Huntmaster of the Fells. For the land base, pretty much what you expect. We've got the 4 black-red fast lands, 9 fetches in Bloodstained Mire, Verdant Catacombs, and Wooded Foothills. Our 3 man lands in Raging Ravine. I think only 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 shock lands. 2 Overgrown Tomb, 1 Blood Crypt, and 1 Stomping Ground. And then I'm rounding out my list with 4 basics, 2 swamps, 2 forests. This is mostly for the sideboard and also just for dealing with Blood Moon, which hurts quite a bit. And sometimes you just want to fetch a second forest. So I like having 2 forests. 24 lands in total, 60 cards in the main deck. Let's talk about the sideboard. Excuse me. Alright, so the sideboard is always really tough to come up with a solid list to fight the metagame. Modern is such an open format. You're always going to have decks that you just don't have the answers for. You just got to learn to fight through that and hopefully have a little bit of luck on your side. So this is what we're going to be taking to the league this time. I have 1 Grim Lavamancer. This card does fight with your Tarmogoyf because you're exiling your own cards. Hopefully it's to the point where Grim Lavamancer is just better for you than Tarmogoyf. Against Affinity, against Merfolk, against Counters Company decks, constantly killing off their small dudes is going to aid you in the long run, where Tarmogoyf falls short. Killing them faster helps. Having the cards go to Grim Lavamancer instead of Tarmogoyf just is the better plan. And plus, most of the time, you're just still going to be killing them with a 2-3 Tarmogoyf. So I'm going to run 1 just because the small creature decks are apparently really big. We've got 2 Grafdigger's Cage. This is a nod to a lot of different decks. The small creature decks running Collected Company, this just completely shuts down. It shuts off Dredge entirely. Shuts off Storm mostly, without them being to flashback their cards from their graveyard. Storm has a hard time doing what Storm wants to do. So we're going to run 2. There's a lot of decks that this card can come in for. Even just generic control decks with Snapcaster Mage, if you have a couple dead cards. This is not a bad choice. I mean, it's not the best, but it's also not bad. Shutting off their Snapcaster Mages does feel pretty good. 2 Nihil Spellbombs, kind of the same thing. I bring this card in a lot against Grixis Death Shadow because being able to turn off their Delve creatures feels really good, and plus it replaces itself if you have an extra black mana floating. And if it's on the field, you're going to play around having 1 black mana available. So 2 Spellbombs as well to deal with generic graveyard strategies, Delve creatures, things like that. Feels really good to have these. Moving up, we have 2 copies of Collective Brutality, which I actually hated this card so very much when I first started playing Jund, but the more I've played it, the more I've gotten used to it. This card is really, really good. This is like your number 1 hate card against Burn, which is always, for some reason, around. Burn, it comes in. Small creature decks, it comes in. Counters or Collected Company decks. Storm, it's really good. It's a really solid all-around card where, sure, we're not Abzan, we don't have a Lingering Souls to discard to it for Escalate. There's a lot of cards that we don't really care about getting rid of sometimes. Sometimes we're just flooded on removal spells that we don't need, and we can pitch them, or we have a lot of lands that we can throw away. Things with Jund happens quite a bit, so Collective Brutality has gone up in value in my book, and it's a really, really solid card. Ancient Grudge, generic artifact hate. Probably just the best red-green artifact hate card that Jund can run. I'm not running Shatterstorm or anything crazy like that. I feel like the Affinity matchup, as long as they don't have 7 cards on their field on turn 1, is a pretty solid matchup for Jund. So I've actually started cutting down on my Ancient Grudges. I'm not going to ever run a list without at least 1, because sometimes you really want to kill their Cranial Plating or their Springleaf Drum to turn off Metalcraft, and removal spells can't do that. So 1 copy of Ancient Grudge and any other generic artifact decks. Lantern Control is a thing. Mono Blue Tron I played against yesterday, that's a thing that runs a lot of artifacts. Ancient Grudge is a really solid card. We'll skip over this and run to a couple more creatures. I have 2 copies of Kitchen Finks. Any green-white deck in Modern, I feel like, should just have at least 2 copies of this card. This card is just stupidly good in this entire format. Comes in against Burn, comes in against Grixis Death Shadow, comes in against anything where I have dead cards that I want to gain some life. It's just an overall amazing card that is really annoying to deal with because it's 3 mana, so it doesn't die to Fatal Push without Revolt. And not only that, even when they do cast Fatal Push, it just comes back with Persist. And sure, we can't do silly things with Persist and -1/-1 counters like other decks can. It doesn't matter. Just the fact that it's there and it's annoying to deal with. They have to 2-for-1 themselves most of the time. And most of the time, they're just going to favorably block something bigger than it and come back and gain you more life. So Kitchen Finks, in my mind, one of the best cards in Modern. I'm always going to have at least a couple copies of this card in my sideboards. We have 1 Anger of the Gods, which in recent times I've found myself less reliant on overall board wipes because a lot of the times I've kept up in the 1-for-1 trades of their small creatures where I don't need the board wipe when I draw it. And then there's other times where I've been so far behind, even when I do board wipe them, I'm still going to lose the game just because they got me down so far. I'm still going to run 1 as an insurance policy. I haven't fully jumped off this bandwagon yet. I like Anger of the Gods right now. Probably not as much as Damnation, but once again, it's a nod to the small creature decks. Comes down 1 turn faster, exiles all of their stuff, so we don't have to deal with it again. Things along those lines that I'm just going to run Anger. Plus, Dredge is a thing that Jund just loses to, so having another sideboard card for Dredge feels really good. And we've got Thrun the Last Troll, which is a bit of a pet card, I guess I can say. I love Thrun. The amount of times I've got to cast Thrun is like I probably can count on one hand. This card is amazing against any control deck at all. Like, can't be countered in Hexproof. That's basically says control doesn't get to do what they want against this. Plus it has Regenerate, so unless they Damnation or unless they Wrath of God, this card is going to stick around for a very, very long time. Great against control matchups, and Jeskai control is pretty popular right now. Blue-white control has even jumped up in popularity quite a bit. Maybe blue-black control is even around. I've seen a couple lists. So in the control-heavy mirror or meta, I want Thrun, so I'm going to have 1. Never draw them when I need them, but I'm still going to have them in my sideboard. And finally, the last card is typically a Jund hater. I don't know if that's the right word. I have 3 copies of Blood Moon in my sideboard. Blood Moon is typically, for a Jund deck, the kryptonite that you just hate to see when your opponent plays it. You run a lot of non-basic lands, and it really sucks. Granted, it's not as bad as, say, Abzan getting Blood Moon, because at least red is in your colors, and you have some red spells. But you still never want to get Blood Mooned. So why do I have them here? These 3 cards are my big mana deck hate, which I used to run 3 copies of Fulminator Mage for, but I always felt that if I ever drew the Fulminator Mage, sure, it took out their land like a Tron land, and then they just immediately played the same land that I just blew up, and it felt really, really bad. So with Eldrazi Tron being so big, normal Tron coming back, Bant Eldrazi even, some just really, really greedy mana bases, having Blood Moon just wins you the game most of the time. If they don't have a Ghost Quarter to go get one of their wastes as Bant Eldrazi or Eldrazi Tron, they just straight up can't cast any of their Eldrazi. And that's how they win the game. So this is just a complete shutdown of those kinds of decks, which I expect to see a lot of if we're at least winning, because the last league I did didn't go well, and I didn't see a single big top deck. But Blood Moon has done really well for me. It's won me a lot of games. Even Titan Shift, that's another deck I didn't even talk about. Like this card just shuts off Titan Shift, their Valakuts and all that stuff. So Blood Moon has been really, really good for me. I'm going to run it here. I'm a big fan of it. And yeah, this is also a nod to why I have 2 forests and 2 swamps in my sideboard, or in my main deck. That way I have more basic lands. When I do Blood Moon my opponent, I can cast more spells than them, hopefully. So that's Jund midrange. That's the deck we're going to be doing battle with today. hopefully it goes better than my last league. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you in round number 1. Just playing a control deck. This Abrupt Decay just got way better. Okay, it landed. He could still bounce it, of course, but he thought about it, so he has to have a counter spell. Okay, opt.